Okay, the question about paying, we did 13, the question about paying taxes, and it's talking about the money loose heads on it, right? And so, it's like, who's it gonna say, give to the emperor, or give to Caesar that, to Caesar, that to God, that's what is God. So let's pick it up at verse 18. Paul, Brother Paul would just pick it up at verse.
Come unto him
Mark 12, 18.
Then come unto him the suit of these
Sadducees,
which says there is no resurrection. And they asked him, saying, Master, Moses wrote unto us, if a man's brother dies and leaves his wife behind, and leave no children, that his brother should take his wife and raise up seed and kill his brother. Now there were 7 brethren, and the first took a wife, and dying left no seed, and the second took her and died. Neither left he any seed, and the third likewise, and the seven had her, and left no seed. Last of all, the woman died also. In the resurrection, therefore, when they shall rise, whose wife shall she be of them? For the 7 had her to wife. And Jesus answering said unto them, do you not therefore err? Because you know not the scriptures, neither the power of God. For when they shall rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels which are in heaven. And as touching the dead, that they rise, have you not read in the book of Moses, how in the bush God spoke unto him, saying, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. Therefore do greatly err. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Jesus answered him, the first of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel.
Oh, wait a minute, stop. I'm sorry, you want, okay. Let's go back to the question about the resurrection. All right, now, so the question, the Sadducees, this whole thing about trying to trap Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Constantly trying to trap Jesus. So they asked the question, y'all heard the question, if a man dies leaving a wife, a man dies leaving a wife, no child, shall marry the widow, raise up the children for his brother. There are 7 brothers, the first married, and when he died, no children, and everybody does. So whose wife would she be? And Jesus said what to them? What did Jesus say? Okay, the woman married 7 brothers because, they had to take her on after their brothers died. So what's going on here?
They didn't understand the scripture. I'm going to have to tell you, when you look at this,
I mean, do you get the conundrum, so to speak?
Get the what?
The conundrum, the issue here.
Oh,
it's like when she gets to heaven, who the husband?
Who's going to be the husband?
Who gonna be the husband?
None of them.
Jesus said there's no marriage.
That's right, gonna be like angels.
There's no marriage. So it's like, and I think some commentaries say, well, the transition, you get new bodies, right? What we have here is not what we'll get there.
Right.
So, it's like, and that's probably problematic because that's why ain't nobody preaching this at the funerals that Sister Francis is going to today. That you ain't gonna know that Sister Mary ain't go back and connect with Brother Joe because there's no marriage in heaven. Because we always say that when you go to heaven you're gonna connect back with Johnny and Mary, Rebecca and Robert are back together again. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the 2 people I know, right? Rebecca and Robert are back together again.
Rebecca with Robert, not Paul.
Robert and Rebecca King.
Oh.
Okay.
What you mean, Rebecca, not Paul?
He done put her with somebody
I didn't know there was a Robert with your Rebecca. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
I didn't know that. So, but there's other Rebeccas in the world. And other Rebeccas.
That was one of the biggest problems that the lady that my grandfather married after my mother died, the original grandma. She worried about who was gonna be the husband when they get to heaven. And I said, Mama Lizzie, you ain't gonna be, you might know him. I don't think you gonna even know him. Because when you go there, you going to see Jesus. You ain't going to see by the husband. She said, yeah, but I want to know if his flesh is there. You know, I go, oh, Lord.
But then, but he doesn't even say that. Well, look at what Jesus' response to, okay? Because when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage.
Right.
So something changed. In the transition, we don't carry over, praise God, all of the mess from this life into the next life. Somebody ought to shout hallelujah. But,
Hallelujah.
But he says here, for they are like angels in heaven. And as for the dead being raised, have you not read in the book of Moses? That's the Pentateuch. Okay, those first 5 books of the Old Testament. In the story about the bush, God said that I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but the living. And so Jesus talks about when we transition, we continue to live. But he also is clear that this, what we have on now, this is dead.
We ain't taking it with us.
You're not taking this with you. Because what do they say? You know that you will you will raised in a body that is incorruptible. These bodies are corruptible. These bodies get old. These bodies age, except for Wendell, these bodies age. Ain't that right, Wendell?
You know that's right.
I know that's right. So these bodies age, but then when we die, we're going to be totally changed, and life is going to be changed because the whole purpose of getting what is supposed to be first in our lives.
God.
Say what?
God.
Y'all sure?
Yes.
What about family?
That ain't first.
First thing you know, love the Lord thy God with all their heart, soul, and mind. That's the first commandment.
There you go. And that is the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Sit still.
So you want you over here where you can sit back.
Seats in this place.
You got that seat, because that's a good seat. I mean,
It's
warm.
soft.
I
Well, it's
got-
only for me when I can't hear. Doesn't do much good.
Good happy day before your birthday.
Yeah. Pray all night. I said I ought to give my step all night.
Catherine, I guess.
I'm making it in the morning.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You should have called me. I'd have helped you pray.
Listen.
Oh, they in the car.
Oh, okay. Did you forget my thanks to the kids?
Oh, no.
You should have never tell them I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. I sure did. I couldn't sleep no way, so I got up and did it, okay?
Thank the Lord for that. That's good.
So we're in the these are for your kids.
Oh.
There's
But
I said tearing it down and building something else. Thank you.
progress.
But progress is being made.
Word.
Hallelujah.
That's
Plus,
right.
please.
Oh, praise God.
Hallelujah.
Tearing down the building across the street.
I told y'all sometimes, what did you say? Sometimes you just have to stand firm. Go and fight. You go get ready to go and fight, and the Lord will win the battle. But anyway, so we're looking at Mark the 12th chapter. I'm sorry, and we're looking at verse 18, the resurrection, and the question about the resurrection. And so Jesus is trying to make a point that you sitting up here worried about something that's not something you need to worry about, because that's not how it works. Yes, sir.
People, for whatever reason, they put a lot of emphasis on burying each other, on top of each other, buying family plots. And I'm saying, well, since that it's not gonna be that way in heaven anyway, what's the purpose and wanna be buried next to whoever.
Why y'all think that
Because they're
is?
still in the flesh.
Right.
You dead.
No, but their thinking is still here. They're not thinking, they're still thinking.
Well, when I go visit my grandparents, it makes it more convenient that I can go see them both at the same time.
I mean, it's flesh. That's the truth. It's flesh. We remember those relationships, right? Because my grandparents are buried together, and their son is buried right next to him. My father's buried right next to him, and that's the way it should be. But their daughter is buried in Georgia. Okay, that's where she was when she died. And so I told Pam, it's like wherever we are,
That's where you go.
There we go.
Really?
don't travel, don't take me where.
Judge close his grave. Yeah.
I mean, I've been to my mother's grave once, maybe twice, and I'm probably not planning to go back. When I go to Detroit, that's not one of my spots to go, because that's not a good place for me. Okay, so I'm not happy there. I'm not a happy spot for me, because we had a conversation at the grave, and I figured out, we could have this conversation in the car. It was raining at the time. We could have this conversation in the car. So, I saw it. I saw this wonderful thing, and it's beautiful, and but it's not. There's nothing there. I mean, there's no person I can talk to.
Right.
And so, but that's me. But I understand other people who go and visit and have great conversations. It's all into what you want to do, but remember that that's here. That's here. That does not translate
To heaven.
to heaven. Per Jesus. Don't take it from me, take it from Jesus. Now, why can't we say that at the funeral?
Because it's gonna hurt.
Reverend Mary, why can't we say that at the funeral?
Is that comforting to the people?
So now, are we wrong? Because I want to ask, because since nobody here is suffering with that right now, let's talk about it. Is it wrong is it wrong to say, well, if you live right, you'll see mother one day again? Because the inference in that, in my mind, and I struggle with that, is that you only living right to see mom.
Well.
But But your the reason you want to live right is because of what Christ died for, what the preacher talked about yesterday. And that was awesome.
Yes, it was.
That was awesome.
Yes,
that was awesome. I mean, it was all about thanks to God for all that, especially his story about the man, the soldier, as he was dying. Lord, I thank you.
Thank you for my
Did y'all hear
soldiers.
that?
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, that put the whole thing in a whole different perspective for me. That and when we say thank God for everything, I appreciated that illustration.
Yes. Yes.
Because the Christian, remember, Christian is not just where you go to church. It's about how you live. And so if that's what that man did, and that's the impact that we leave about how we live.
Yeah.
So, it's like, if he's saying, while he is yet dying, Lord, I thank you. It's like, that's because, that's what Stephen did, right?
Yes.
Y'all remember Stephen,
Don't
when
hold
he's
it
being when he's being stoned. Oh, thank you. It's like, not angry, just ready. That was an interesting theory. Yes, did you have something you want to say? Go ahead.
I got a lot of questions like about death and dying, and then it's like one question come to my mind is I hear a lot of times people say your mother looking over you from heaven and all that stuff like that, and what about that? I mean, is that, and then it's like certain parts of the Bible say the dead know nothing, and we just read a passage that kind of indicated that, right?
That it's a change. It's a total different world. And a friend of mine my best friend, as a matter of fact, who is probably not technically a Christian. He's probably more of an agnostic. he had come to, he had dealt with that same scripture that you dealt with, that you're just talking about, and saying, if I believe my mother was in heaven, and in heaven was there no more tears, no more worries, could she be comfortable in heaven looking at me struggle? His mother's dead. His mother had died. And so that's where he got the idea that we've got to go ahead and grow up. If Christians need to grow up and accept the fact that they are casting their lot with God. And so you don't need to rely on my mother's prayers or grandma's prayers, because some people, someone say, you know, my grandma, the reason I'm doing good now, because my grandma prayed. Okay, in this life. In this life. Amen, perhaps. But sooner or later, you got to grow up.
Yes.
Before it's too late, and accept it for yourself.
You know, I've said this numerous times before. When Mama died, me and Larry standing there holding her hands, and she looked, all she did, she said, because that's when I first got clean. I'd been clean about 3 years. She said, promise me you'll keep doing what you've been doing the last 3 years. And then Mama grabbed both of our hands and said, baby, don't worry about me. I'm going to be all right. And smiled and closed her eyes. It wasn't nothing about looking out after you or I'll see you somewhere. She said, don't worry about me. I'm going to be all right. And smile. And then people ask me, say, why are you so happy, so lucky? I said, my mama died happy, knowing where she is doing. And she don't want me moping around. I don't say nothing about her looking down, seeing what I'm doing. Just say she died happy. And you talk about burying mama's ashes is in Vegas around the sign, welcome to Vegas. My brother's ashes is out at Sailorville. And we don't, you know, ain't no, and me, excuse me, I told my wife, tie a pork chop on my butt, and told me out there, to feed the coyotes and stuff out where we live, because this body ain't nothing but a shell, I'm gone. You know, so don't worry about putting me in no grave and coming with no headstone and all that and talking to me, because when people tell me, yeah, I went out and talked to Mom, I said, what'd they say? While you was talking to him. You know, I want to know.
Well, I mean, I get it. I get the idea. I do. I really do. Because you want to respect those who took care of you and those who loved you. So I'm not knocking that at all. But I'm saying to each his or her own, because you know, it's like, that's what you do. That's a way of saying thank you to me. If you go out and attend to the graves and stuff like that, that's your way of saying thank you. That's your way of remembering what these people have done for you. You know, so I mean, so I'm not knocking that. It's just, but we have to go to the point where we're okay with the idea of transition.
Yes.
And that heaven is not going to be Earth 2.0.
Right.
That, you know, because at that stage there will be no more sin. Hallelujah. No more sin, because we will be in fellowship with God. So I think the idea the dead know of nothing probably could be helpful, but it's hard for us to deal with in a moment of grief. You have to go past that. You have to go past that, or you have to be to a point as a Christian mature enough to understand that a transition has taken place and that it is neither good nor bad.
True.
It just is. I mean, you know, it's like, yeah, some deaths are tragic, and the preacher talked about it last night, because, and then, you know, we go home and turn on the news and find out that people got killed at the hospital, at the Catholic bookstore, and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, we live in a world that's not safe.
That's true.
Where you can, you know, no place is safe if you can't go to the hospital and be safe. You know, it just happens. And it happens everywhere. It's not just limited to certain places. People just do stuff. You know, I'm looking at that man, and I can't get, for the life of me, get my head around why that man killed his wife and his 2 daughters and his unborn son. I can't, my mind can, that's evil personified. Because he wanted
Another man.
to be with another girl, another woman. I just go, don't they have a word for that? I think it's called divorce. Yeah. Just get a divorce, move on. Okay, the child support might be a little high, but that's the cost of having children. was it worth it? Is it worth it to be locked up
No,
for the rest of your life?
no.
To the fact where your own mother is standing in the courtroom and saying, why did you do this?
Yeah, think of the children, wife. I mean, you just,
For him to kill off his
Selfish.
seed. Okay, that's my was looking.
Right, and it killed her grandchildren. I mean, because as a grandparent, there's I'm mad at you for killing my granddaughter.
That's
Well,
right.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
yeah, what do they know about it?
Yeah, what did they do? Well, they ain't have nothing to do with that.
Right.
So, you are evil. And then you watch the videos afterwards where
She's singing, my daddy is a.
well, oh Lord, I didn't see that. Thank you.
She is in the car seat and stuff
Uh-huh.
singing about her daddy, yeah.
But him talking about where my
Help me
wife-
find my
help
wife,
me find
bring
my
her back
wife.
and stuff.
Oh, what? Anyway, so we got a lot of evil in this world.
Yeah.
And I'm glad none of that evil gonna be following us to heaven,
Yes.
Amen.
to the next realm. I'm
Don't you
glad.
think about it that
One lady.
I have
sorry.
problems with separating the transition from becoming spiritual and being flesh and blood in the hereafter.
Mhm.
As at the very simplest form, I say, well, if we just, I don't know how the people who think that they're walking around heaven like they were on earth, when they know that the body dissolves and becomes dust at the grave.
Right.
So for me, it's that the spiritual part is what goes over. What you think and what you do is spiritual, that there is no, you know me, I always think about the crazy jokes. The cat who went to heaven and God said, well, just find your way around. And he said, oh, this is a wonderful place to be. There's meals on wheels. Because they had all the mice up there too. So when you think about people, you think, okay, you got dog heaven and they're up there. Where are all these things? I mean, where could they all be? So I see it, if you say it's a transition, and I look at everybody in my family is in the ground. I have said to myself, there's nothing there but dust. The body dissolves. We know that. So what lives on is that spirit. And if you're thinking about them and what they would be saying to you, then that's a part of how you have lived your life in relationship to that person. And if it comes back to you negatively, then that's a part of what you're trying to deal with as a human being, not what they're dealing with.
No, they're not dealing with that at all. And why would they? I guess that's the whole part, that one of the issues about if we were going up there and it was Earth 2.0, some of us are not getting along with others. Let the church say amen.
Amen.
And some of us we don't necessarily are violent with each other, okay? But it's just if you see that person, you get that look on your face, or at least inside, that says,
Bad
here they
blood.
go again. Okay? And is that loving? Because, we get ready to, you want to read this in just a minute. So, it's like, think about what you're asking. I think Sister Catherine that's on it is that there's a spirit, but the spirit is a spirit that worships God and is focused on God and the things that we share now. That spirit, the Holy Spirit that brings to our remembrance the wonderful things people have done or did for us or are even doing for us. That's a different spirit, because that strengthens you that ought to be strengthening you to be better yourself. Because sometimes I think we take in the good that others do for us and we just kind of hoard it. And we know hoarding is something that's a human trait. People hoard stuff. People probably hoard blessings. I mean, they hoard love. It's like, I can't share my love with anybody else. Or if you love me, how can you love somebody else? And I mean, but love is something that we can share with everybody. You know, not to get into, you know, the agape form of love. We can do that. We can love everybody. We can share love. You don't have to just love one person.
Well, it's the different forms of love.
Huh?
Different forms of
Yeah,
love.
and I'm talking about in the agape form, not in the romantic or anything like that. I'm just saying, but there's, you can. You don't have to just, you know, just. Okay, well, there are 5 ministers, but the only one I love is Mary. Well, that's wrong. That's wrong, and that's wrong for somebody to expect other people not to care about other people. You know, it's like, I only care about me, don't care about nobody else. Well, of course you will. I mean, I've heard pastors say, well, don't talk to my people.
Yeah.
Well, it was my people for 6 years too. Okay, and so it's like we just relationships. It's like, no, I don't want a pastor. Trust me, I've been waiting to come back. You got them. But we had friendly relationships. Can you not have friendly relationships with people? And not necessarily, no, I'm not your pastor. I don't want to be your pastor. But friendly relationships. We got to grow up, folks.
Yes.
We got to grow. Yes.
So, there's a difference between love and obsessive compulsion.
Okay.
So what you saying about, you know, that's mine, you can't love her like I love her and all that stuff, that's kind of like obsession.
Well, yeah, I mean, something like that.
It's
You know?
self-centered.
Yeah, but it's just that thing. I can't explain it right now. It's like I'm lost in for words, but it's like something's going on with us that we tend to just we want it all. And we don't want to give, because we're afraid that if we give, we're going to run out. I really think, sometimes we think God's going to stop blessing us.
That has something to do, I think, with how a person feels about himself. If you feel that you're dependent and without that, you are nothing, then you have to keep that.
Right.
If you feel that you are a person of worth in your own body, you're willing to give. Because you know you're going to get what's coming to you, you'll get.
Hallelujah.
That's
absolutely. And that's that Christian maturity that, you know, God will not stop blessing you. You know, I mean, it's like you've got to go ahead and trust that. That God has his eye on you all the time.
In spite of you.
In spite of you. In spite of you, and sometimes because he knows who you are. Okay? That's a good thing too. That's a good thing too. But we've got to just be more open to allowing God's love to flow. I think that's really the key. You know, that we won't have to hoard. You know, it's like sometimes people, and y'all heard the news, right? And so many AMEs are so upset that Jamal Bryant is leaving Empowerment Temple in Baltimore, Maryland, the 10,000 member AME church, and going to Eddie Long's old church in Georgia.
So it's confirmed he is leaving.
Oh yeah, he's going.
So what's going to happen to that church?
Well, guess what? It's going to find out what it's like to be an AME church, okay? Because, and the AME church is going to find out what it's like to try and appoint a pastor to a 10,000 member church. Because we are not a mega church denomination for the most part. The churches that have super large mega church size congregations are those who pastors have been there and built those.
Yes.
So now it's like you got something in Baltimore that is unique to Baltimore, or unique in the AME church. And pastor did something that was unique in the AME church.
How did it become AME?
Well, he brought it into the denomination. He's the son of Bishop Bryant. The pastor's the son of Bishop
Reverend
Bryant.
C.
And Reverend C.
Yeah, Reverend
The pastor of the church in Baltimore is the son of
So
Bishop.
that just makes him AME because he bought it.
Well, he brought it into the church. He bought Empowerment Temple into the connection.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Okay.
So he brought the church into the connection. So he didn't start a non-denominational church. He started an AME church and brought it into the connection. And so it's an AME church. Well, you know how we are. if you bring it to us, it's ours. And so now there's a church that is so pastor dominated that it's got to learn how to grow up and deal without this pastor who left to go to another church.
But the Brian
So
said
Eddie
they,
Long left to go to an AME church?
No, to New Birth Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia. Eddie Long, the church where Eddie Long was the
I think he
pastor.
died.
And he died.
Yeah, he died.
Oh, my
And so then, you know, so maybe he'll be Bishop Bryant, but he won't be an AME bishop.
Mm.
But if his parents are there, wouldn't they, I know Bishop is retired, but Reverend C isn't necessarily, he could pastor.
Well, she's not 72, but you know, that would be something for the bishop of the second
Oh.
Episcopal district to decide. It's now an AME church, and that goes that thing that you guys,
Okay.
we gotta understand if we wanna be AME, this is how it works.
Right.
This is the system. And you know, nobody's gonna bother that church, just like no bishop is gonna move Jimmy Miller in our district from DuPage unless he gets elected to the office he's running for. Okay? So no bishop's gonna move him though. Because he built that church up. No bishop gonna move Jesse Hawkins because they built that church, but there's not that many mega churches in the collection.
I didn't even know there was any until recently.
It is. Whether it's good or bad, it is. It's an issue because because the church wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
You know, it's because they did it good old Baptist way. We investigate, then we name, and then you quit.
Mm.
So, you know, like if I ever get a job at a Baptist church, one day I'll be here, and then the next day y'all find out I'm leaving. Because I went and applied. Job. I'm not doing that. But that's how it works. I mean, it's a call. You know, like every church, every Baptist church that goes out of town and brings in a pastor, they've been out there searching. They called him. He may have taken a weekend off and came up to the church to preach and all that. They voted him in. Then he has to go back and say to the other Baptist church, well, I'm going to be leaving and going to.
What happens to the membership?
That's a great question, Sister Witch. That's going to be the challenge for the church. What's going to happen to the membership? Because the membership, remember, the key in our denomination is that you follow God, not the pastor, because the pastor is interchangeable. So, you know, you wouldn't leave the church just because the pastor changed. That if you're really,
Amen.
if you're really into the thing, you know, you just, the next pastor comes, and the next pastor comes, and the next pastor comes. That's why they're only 1-year appointments. But this is a different kind of situation because everything is around Pastor Bryant. Okay, so Pastor Jamal is
They haven't had to deal with the articles of religion.
Huh?
Any of those things that we are as AMBs, and each individual is going to have to make the decision of whether they want to go with that or not. It may not continue to be a great big church.
It may not, which would be a real big problem.
Well, that's the first district, right? Second district. There's a whole bunch of churches in that, I guess, that conference that's
our mega
around,
church conference.
and there's a whole bunch of them that's brand new churches.
There's a lot of them in the second district. And so, you know, it's like that. But who will, it's when a mega church is very, very much pastor driven. And so it's like they don't do transitions. They don't always do transitions well.
Right.
Because it's pastor driven. It takes, you know, especially if it's not a change, succession thing going on, so that, you know, it's like I hand the mantle over to Paul. You know, I'm in the pastor of the mega church. Now, he's come along so that when I leave, there's no people had a chance to get to know him and watch him and get to know him as I did. I think that's what they did with Jeremiah Wright's church, that the other guy came in and worked with him for almost a year, and then he retired and he was already there. So there was no thing, but most of the time you don't have that.
Well, Reverend C's been doing a lot of programming there,
Right.
so
And maybe,
they'll
and maybe.
still have the feel.
She only got a few more years herself.
I know.
She's 70, I think, right? Yeah, so she's 70. So, you know, 75 is it. But it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Y'all pray for them. Keep them lifted up in prayer, because that's going to be a major change.
And
No, I'm so out of touch. Whatever happened to McKenzie, Bishop McKenzie?
Bishop McKenzie retires in 2020.
So she's still active?
She's still active. She retires in 2020.
I was just gonna say that,
She's the Bishop of Texas.
Vera Boltner, I don't think you remember them.
I know, Mrs. Bowman.
Oh, okay. I still converse with her. And I called her, and she was talking about, well, you know, our church is a 2,000 membership, and we took in 50 this month already. And I said, well, praise the Lord. But when Reverend Rome, or whatever his name, the preacher who built that church and everything, when he died, you had almost 100 to 200 people who left, because whoever he had as his predecessor, he had brought in and trained and all of that, they weren't willing to, because he wasn't like him. And she said, one of the ladies said to her, ain't nobody ever gonna be like him. So I don't know why I even decided I would leave. But she's back. But everybody wants to get you, when they get used to one pastor, they don't want to do it later. Miss Thomas at St. Luke.
So to just show you guys how difficult it is, if we can't do pastoral transitions on earth,
Right.
Lord have mercy, how in the world are we going ready for heaven, okay?
All right.
We have got to mature. It is a real concern that we really have to be ready to mature. But I want to get to this last part, the next part of this thing. Who's
The most important commandment.
Yeah, Reverend Clemens, can you see it?
Yes, where we?
Verse 28.
28.
Yeah.
One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. Well said, teacher, the man replied. You are right in saying that God is one and there is no other but him. To love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, and with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is more important than all burnt offerings and sacrifices. When Jesus saw that the man, that he had answered wisely, he said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of God. And from then, no one dared ask him any more questions.
Okay, now, what are you seeing there, folks? In light of, if you take all of these together, okay, if you take, this is kind of like the wicked tenants, the taxes, the resurrection, it comes down to this, because everything was a test, right? Everything was a test. The Pharisees, a test. Who is this Jesus? And Jesus is trying to tell everybody who he is and what he's about. And he gets down to right here, because remember, there's things like, is he coming to change the law? Well, no, these are two major commandments. And Jesus said they're the most important because they cover everything.
Yes.
One is to recognize that the Lord is one, and that you love him with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, every fiber of your being. But then the second one is that you gotta love your neighbor as yourself. You got these two things going in, because if you love God, you're gonna obey God. If you love your neighbor, you ain't gonna covet, you're not gonna commit adultery, you're not gonna you're not gonna steal or kill. So that covers just about everything. Those are the two. What did we say on Sunday? upon these two commandments.
And
Amen.
all the
The
law and the prophets.
That's it. And so then the man says, Jesus, you answered wisely because he said, you know, you answered wisely because he gets it. It's more important. That's the key. Look at verse 33. To love him with all the heart and with all the understanding and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. This is much more important than all the burnt offerings and sacrifices. Wow. Wow. We are concerned about what? Salvation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But salvation really comes when we love God with our whole being. And we are willing to go beyond ourselves to love our neighbors.
Yes.
That's not. Is it easy? I don't know. Because in our minds, we still have issues with folk.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have gotten very good control over our tongue. So, you know, we don't always have to give people a piece of our mind, praise God. But we don't give a piece of the mind with our tongue, but we sure give them a good tongue lashing up here sometimes.
Oh, yes, we do.
Amen, brother.
Ah,
I deal with you today.
Pastor,
Yes,
since you're on this, every Sunday, first Sunday,
yes.
I noticed as you talk to the kids, you ask them, do you love, well, I don't know, I'm not gonna say it the way you said, but anyway, what you're saying is, you love your enemy, and can you love him just like you love yourself? And this is, and they all say yes.
Sometimes.
after pause.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate the pause. Because you ought to appreciate the pause. Because at least
Yeah, think
you're
about
listening
that
to
real
what
quick.
I am saying. Appreciate the pause. Because, you know, that is your equivalent to the burnt offerings and the sacrifices. And to do all of that is more important than that. As a matter of fact, to take communion when you really ain't planning to make any noticeable change or difference is probably not a good thing for you to do. We won't stop you, but you might want to think about it. If something, and then you might want to think, well, then, because then here's your problem. God has already said that's a commandment of God for you to do that. And if you can't do that, that means you are disobeying God. Your issue ain't, as they say in ministry, your issue ain't with me. It's with the word, okay? And that's the truth. And like, it's like, I ain't never gonna like you. Period. That's it. I love everybody. I but you, okay?
I can't love you.
I can't love you. I can't be by. I can't deal with you.
I had a little girl tell me we were going through the training to be baptized, and I asked her, do you have a good relationship with all the people of the church? She says no. And she told me, the girl, that she didn't like. And so I said, now, well, how are you going to be baptized and you have dislike against this girl? And she said, I don't know. Well, we kept on through the class, and before the class was over, she says, I think I can like her now.
Praise God.
So she said yes to that question when I asked her, do you have a good relationship with all the people of this church? So I don't know.
But it seems so simple. It's like if I want to love God and everybody, you know, how many of you love the Lord? Amen.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, how many of you love, to tell the truth? Oh, I'll never say that, maybe, but you know, tell the truth, how many of you love your neighbors as you love yourself? And see, the question is
I
deep.
didn't answer that.
The question is deep because I was confronted with it the other night. I'm getting out of my car, this man jumps out of the car next to me. I'm trying to be cool, but I'm scared to death because I don't, because he just jumps out the car. And then he goes on with this story, whatever his story was about being a veteran and he and Ames, he need to get back to Ames and he ain't got no gas. And it's like, I turn into Mrs. Williams and I start asking myself, well, did you know you were coming to Des Moines? You know, I'm like, but really, I'm just trying to get away from him at this stage because my fear, because, you know, it's just like, if you could have been there, I'm getting out my car. It's dark. It was after the service last night. It was like, it's dark. And the parking lot at Gateway Market is dark.
Okay.
And so I'm getting out the car, and hey, Carla. Mm-hmm. And it's like he just jumps out, and it's like it's cold, it's dark, and I don't have any money anyway. I don't have any cash. I didn't have any cash. Mm-hmm. Not even $1. I would have given it to him. But I didn't have any. It's like, I don't have any money. And you could tell he was upset. And now I'm really ready to go into the store because he looked very disappointed. And it's like, wow, but what should I have done? What should I have done? Greg?
I can't envision that situation.
Huh?
I can't envision that situation. I can just tell you that I was at the car wash. The guy asked me, he said, "Can I help you?" I told him no. And he kept coming toward me. And my instinct says, turn the water on him. I turned the water on him. I mean, I told him I didn't want no help. So, I mean, I'm thinking about my own safety, so.
And so, I mean, that's exactly where I was with that conversation. It's like, look, I need to get in that store because I'm not feeling you right now. I'm not feeling the story. You brought the whole family. I was analyzing his whole life in the store. Why would you bring all your people, your family to Des Moines and you still got to get back to Ames and you ain't got no gas? What happened? Or at least get me at the gas station. I'll give you some gas. We ain't at the gas station. We at Gateway Market.
Most expensive place around. Well, you look, Pastor, we had a man who came to the church in Cedar Rapids and he needed $20 to get some gas because he needed to get the diving pole because his mama was sick. And I thought about it. I went back to my seat. I got the $20 and I came back. And I said to him, young man, I'm going to give you this $20. But if you align to me, God is going to give you. I don't want your $20. And he flew out the door with a little boy right behind him. Come to find out he didn't get a skate. He went to all the churches right there in Cedar Rapids trying to get $20. But when I said that to him, he flew out that door. And so the woman that was standing there, she said, I knew he was lying, Miss Clemens. I'm glad you could see. No, I just needed him to know my money, you know, it belongs to God. I don't want him messing over it. But he flew out that door. He grabbed that little boy behind him and pulled him out the door behind him. So, hey.
But, you know, it's like, this whole thing, it really is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes, you know, I think it depends on how the person approaches you and what it is. I know one day we were at the Drake Diner. This guy was standing out there with a sign in front of his store. The girl and I were going in, and I stopped to give him some. She said, "Why are you doing that?" And that's all they're doing is begging. I said, "Look, what he does with it is his responsibility. Mm-hmm. I'm doing what I think I should do." He's asked. I can't deal with the aftermath. And that's usually the way I look at those things. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to give it to you if I can, but it's up to you to decide whether this is worthwhile or not. I can't take on that.
That's all you can do. Perhaps that's all you can do, but it's just like Brother Greg said, people, you know, he said no, he didn't need the help. Man kept coming, spray water on him. maybe that's what Greg wants somebody to do to him if he's bugging him. I don't know.
Yesterday I was in Minneapolis, and I just got out of church. I had on a nice 3-piece suit. I've come from the hotel to where my cousin's at in the hospital is just like from here to the corner. I can walk. Now here's all these people waiting on their L train, whatever it is, and this one black guy here. It's got to be 40 people waiting on this train. And here I come walking across the street, nice coat, nice suit. He leaves all them people and comes over to ask me for money. Another black guy. And I looked at him, I said, why did you not ask somebody over there? He said, well, you look like you got money.
You look like you got
Well, you look like you got money, so I gave him some money.
Well, he knew how to hit
You know, but I mean, they know what they're doing.
Now you've explained why so many people walk around looking like they're ready to
Yeah.
fall off the truck.
Fact of the matter is, you know, you're supposed to love God and love your neighbor like you love God.
As
mean,
yourself,
we say,
as yourself.
okay.
Not like you love God, as yourself. There's a concern there.
So, and we say that every Sunday. And man, I know I don't, but I try. I make an attempt, but I'm not gonna sit here and make it seem like I do, because I don't. Because even if I don't know how I'm gonna love somebody that I don't know like I love me, but that's what we're supposed to do.
Some people don't love themselves, so it's not far removed. So that's the test in that scripture, I think.
Yeah.
Because
That's
love
it.
God, you can picture God, you make him do all kinds of things. You know, people pray for all kinds of things. So you have an idea, but that neighbor, like yourself, and I don't love me, I'm not sure of me. So that's a lower bar.
There's a
And
script.
we get to set it too, like yourself.
Brother Herb and then Brother Curtis.
Yeah, I think there's a scripture. I was gonna start off that way too. That says something about if you can't love your brother, then you can't love God. And then it's like we don't love ourselves all the time, right?
There you go.
And I think I'm a little bit. Somebody said about they know what they're doing. The question is, do you know what you're doing? Did you know what you was doing when you sprayed that man with a hose? Asking you for some help.
I sure did. I told him.
You told him.
I told him.
Now,
Yeah, I
told
knew what I
you.
was doing.
according to water and all these Bible studies I attend, that was an act against God. And they talk about helping the lowly people and stuff like that. It's like, what spiritual principle is that?
Well, I mean, he said he loves himself. So since he loves himself, he gonna protect himself.
Maybe he didn't love himself enough to spray hose. I mean, it's like
Hot soapy water.
But you know, before we can't go into each other's minds sometimes.
I can't do that, you know what I'm saying? I'm the same cat that, you know what I'm saying, a transient gave me $20. Because he seen me put my card in the gas pump and it wasn't working, wasn't no money on it. Dude gave me $20.
She clicked it.
You know what I'm saying? He knew I needed some help. He didn't cuss me out and say, would you drive?
I agree. Yeah, and you know, it's like if he was at the gas station, it was a different story. It's like if we had been at the gas station, I probably would have bought gas and we wouldn't have thought nothing of it. But we weren't at the gas station. We weren't even near any gas station. And so I'm trying to figure out, you want cash, and I don't have any. And I'm not, and what am I going to do? Say, tell him something that I'm not going to do? That I'm going to go in here and get cash? So I really couldn't even do that last night.
You ain't throw rocks at him or spray him with no water hose, did you?
It's the same difference.
And I want to thank you all for treating me well. Paul, I borrowed money from you. You ain't never said nothing derogatory about asking me for money, have you?
Well, it's,
I appreciate it.
But seriously now, the other side of that is, because here's something else. I could give y'all another story. One of our members, somebody came knocking on their door at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they looked out at the woman, and the woman was kind of fragile and all that kind of stuff, and she was like, my husband, my boyfriend, whatever, beat me up. Okay, thank you, I'm glad you did that. My boyfriend beat me up, whatever, and I just need to come into your house for a minute. See, look at your faces. 3 o'clock in the morning, some woman you don't know, looking beat up, knocking on your door saying, can I come in your house? And the member didn't let them in the house. But she said, I'll take you to the hospital. That's what the member said. I'll take you to, do you think you need to go to the hospital? And they said, well, yeah. Okay, well, I'll take you to the hospital. She wouldn't let her come in the hospital. She said, she went upstairs to get her clothes, and her adult son said, where you going? You ain't going nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. And when she comes back downstairs, instead of one voice on the porch, she hears two. And then the next thing you know, the light on the side of the house goes on, and who's at the side door trying to get into her house?
Running interference.
That's why I keep a pistol.
You know,
Ain't no sense in me lying. When the police knocked on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me my brother was dead, they wouldn't answer who it was because we have an intercom because of Sherman. And I kept saying, who is it? And they wouldn't answer. And I took my pistol to the door with the police. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. When I opened the door and saw it was the police, you should have saw me trying to get rid of that pistol. Put it under the couch and stuff. But yeah, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep pushing it. Then I'm going to let them come in the house, then I'll deal with it when it comes. That's just me.
But so, here was somebody getting ready, and I think God guides us.
Yes.
Maybe that's what happened, because the woman was getting ready to really.
Well, her son was the guidance from God.
And her son said, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah, telling her she's not going nowhere.
But so and because it was part of the setup.
Yeah.
She's running interference.
3 a.m. I wouldn't open the door.
Huh?
I wouldn't open the door. I wouldn't answer it. I wouldn't answer that. Just
We
for that
had-
reason.
We had a couple that called the parsonage when we went in Cedar Rapids. And Willie said, well, I'm going to go talk to them. The Spirit of the Lord said to me, he's going to bring them back home. Doggone if he didn't do it. And including that little rat thing I call it, they ain't rats, they, yeah. I told him, you ain't bringing that thing in my house. And just, like I said, the Spirit of the Lord told me, he going to bring them back. Okay? And they stayed there until they got to arguing. And I know they got to go. They got to go. Arguing about him with another woman, calling another woman. I'm like, no. That was it.
So we will pick up next week, next Tuesday, verse 30. What is that? 35. 35. Happy things. First of all, let's sing it because we won't see it tomorrow.
Yes, we won't see her tomorrow.
So we're gonna sing it anyway.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Catherine. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Mrs. Williams, I gotta tell you, you are not the oldest person that I have pastored who's still moving. Sister Moines.
Okay.
So Trinity is 106. So you still got some catching up to do. All right, so you are not done yet. Okay.
There it is.
So anyway, so this today in our circle, I'm gonna ask you one thing. Carolyn, stay in the circle. Stay in the circle, Carolyn.